thank our sponsors for the event today. As we know, they are virtual, but there are still costs involved, and we appreciate their support of the community and all that they do to continue to support all the passionate contributors within our community. So we want to show them our support, give them a shout out, and thank them personally. Well, it's time to assemble. Contributors assemble. Hugo, kick us off.
Thank you. The Microsoft 365 ecosystem is a collection of amazing products and technologies, but behind the success of Microsoft 365 are the people. Not only those who built the products, but also the people in the community who took these products and built amazing things with them. Those who helped customers and organizations fully unleash the power of these products. Those who taught others with videos, presentations, blog posts, and conferences. And those who shared their ideas and enriched the community. In our minds, these community members are superheroes. And today we're going to show you how to discover your superpowers and unleash your extraordinary talents to contribute to the community. And like all superhero stories, there are supervillains who are always trying to stop our heroes from doing good. We'll introduce you to these supervillains that may prevent you from contributing and what you can do to fight them. We'll also show you how you can team up with other team members in the community, and while we can be strong alone, we can be even stronger as a community in our session that we like to call Contributors Assemble. All right, so we have some superheroes today. To help you on this journey, I'd like to introduce you to some of my friends who I really consider real-life superheroes. She works at Microsoft during the day, but at night, she fights Power Platform crimes against poor design with her YouTube videos. April Dunham.
And our next superhero on the call here, thanks for having me, Hugo. He works at Catapult System. He cares about the community and is passionate about helping people. That's his gift. That's his curse. Who is he? It's your friendly neighborhood MVP, David Warner.
Well, thank you, April. Now, some people have said, great power comes great responsibility. Well, at Praxis Consulting, she helps by teaching everyone about both power and responsibility. She is Emily Mancini.
Thank you, David. You may know him as a cloud advocate at Microsoft, but his alter ego is busy helping provide samples to the community. He is the laziest developer alive, Hugo. So today, our story begins with the origin of Spider-Man. It's a classic archetype of an average person discovering incredible powers that can help change the world. Peter Parker is a typical boy who is bitten by a radioactive spider. He finds himself with superpowers, unsure how to use them, and it is a bit bumpy at first as he refines his skills. Once he hones his powers, he's anxious to use it for the larger community. When Spider-Man first meets the Avengers, he's constantly trying to do more, but he hasn't quite found his place just yet. He's continually calling out, Mr. Stark, but his enthusiasm has no place to go. He needs to identify his place on the Avengers and navigate how his powers can contribute to the team. You joined us in this session, so we're thinking you have been bitten by the Microsoft 365 spider too. You're discovering your tech superpowers and want to share them with the greater community, but are unsure how to apply them. Today, we will talk about what a contribution is, how to identify your superpowers and use them against evil villains, also known as barriers or roadblocks, to become a community contributor. Your contribution can have an incredible impact for the entire community, just like Spider-Man helped save the Avengers and became a cornerstone of the team.
So what exactly is the Microsoft community? Well, it's a virtual home for anyone and everyone that wants to work with like-minded, passionate individuals who share the same interests without any geographic or cross-company boundaries. We want to share knowledge. We want to collaborate. We want to learn from each other and be more active together. This is a global community, and it is for everyone. It is for you. And anyone that's interested in collaborating with others and working with others and making our community a better place is who it's for. Now, what is a contribution, you may ask? Well, it may be thought of as something that has to be in the form of code. It has to be a full solution. It has to be something that goes through something called GitHub. Not at all. There are a wide variety of contributions that can be provided to the community. It could come in the form of blogging. It could come in the form of attending a user group or a session and encouraging others like we are today. Writing documentation. All of these things come with a superpower. You have one. Have you found it yet? Do you know what your superpower is? Well, we're going to identify what your superpower is. And to help us, let's kick it back over to Hugo.
Well, thank you. So everybody knows, again, the story of the superhero that has supernatural powers. But some superheroes have more powers than others, and some have only one power that makes them unique. And there's also superheroes who are just normal human beings who have developed unique abilities, often through adversity and perseverance. As a community member, you too can have superpowers. You may not be fighting crimes unless you're fighting crimes against bad design, but you can still do good and leave the Microsoft 365 community better than you found it. And just like superheroes, you don't have to have every superpower. You may only feel comfortable contributing in the community in one way or another, but maybe you feel uneasy about doing some other contribution areas, and that's perfectly fine. What matters is that you find out what your superpower is. And the first step to discovering your superpower is...
Well, so everyone that is joining us today is actually harnessing this first superpower, the power of being there. Just by being here today, you're helping the community. Being there, you can ask questions, we can bounce ideas off of someone else, and we can share our experience, commiserate on issues like how do we implement this web part in SharePoint, whatever it might be. And we can share anecdotes of things that we worked on and experiences that we've had. You may not realize it, but you're having something to contribute. If you keep it to yourself, then how is everyone going to hear the great things that you have to share that you're struggling with? It really helps the community as a whole and people that are doing these presentations to be able to ask those questions and share the experiences. A little personal story about how I got started and how I found my superpower of being there. When I was first starting out, I had an internship at a casino. I got thrown into the world of SharePoint, and one of the people there at the casino happened to be involved in our local user group community. And it took a lot of convincing, but he convinced me to go to that user group meeting and get involved in the community there. I was pretty scared at first. I didn't know these people. Who are they? What are they going to think of me? Will I fit in? But I'm so glad that I took that first push and that nudge there and started joining the local user group community and being there. And you know, it took even longer after attending a few meetings there for me to actually speak up and ask a question. I was, have struggled with anxiety and social anxiety for a while, so painfully shy. It took a lot of courage to embrace the superpower and ask questions and get involved. And even 2 years after being involved in the community from a being there perspective and asking questions in the user group, it took me that much longer before I felt comfortable speaking and training, which leads us into our other superpowers that we have here.
Another superpower you may have is training, helping people understand how to use Microsoft 365, what to use in Microsoft 365 for their challenges. When I first started working with Microsoft 365, I began by giving internal trainings focused on how to be more productive using the tools. I was part of the HR department and frustrated with the lack of transparency across the organization, so I began teaching my colleagues how to be more productive with OneNote and share meeting notes. It changed how we collaborated across the organization. I quickly realized my passion at helping people working better together through the use of this technology, and I loved hearing the challenges in the room and working together to solve them. This led me to explore opportunities for external speaking, which is our next superpower. Speaking externally may give you the opportunity to share stories you learn from your internal trainings and experiences, what worked, what didn't, and the challenges that you faced. I loved sharing what we went through in hopes of helping another organization about to begin that same journey. Speaking also gave me the opportunity to highlight the collective knowledge in the room, as April called out, to help us all be more productive. Attendees have their own anecdotes to share, which we hope you do in the chat today as we talk. And that really adds to the value of the sessions. After these sessions, I always found myself more invigorated and excited for the next. So I knew this was a way I wanted to contribute to the larger community. Often the first sign of your superpower is that you leave feeling more fulfilled and energetic, wanting to do more. Pay attention to that feeling on your journey.
Now, there may be times, though, where you have the desire to speak, but the thought of standing in front of a crowd talking to a bunch of strangers may bring a level of anxiety you've not yet ever experienced. Making videos can help you start to get experienced with that concept, or you may not like to write necessarily. So I started doing videos because when I started writing my blogs, I found that I would never be happy with them. I would sit there and I would tweak them forever and ever and ever. And I joke that because English is a second language for me, it also happens to be my first language, so I'm not that good at it. I joke that speaking allows me to not get so tied up in analyzing every little word. And I enjoy being able to show in an animated fashion how to accomplish whatever it is that I'd like to train or provide to the community. So in doing videos, you can do that. You can get outside of your shell. And if you're wanting to get more into speaking, start out with videos and share them with others. They're a great way to show, even if they're short little 30-second, 1-minute tips and tricks sessions that you're providing and recording to those in the community, I guarantee there'll be someone who finds value in it. But if you enjoy writing, that's an opportunity as well.
Thank you. So it's funny that David likes to write videos over or do videos over writing. I'm the opposite. The thought of editing a video where I hear myself speak is just, it's my kryptonite, right? So I used to be like, oh, I don't have anything interesting to say. I shouldn't blog. And then one day, one of my friends said, what are you talking about? You have nothing interesting to say. You've been working with SharePoint ever since it was called Tahoe, like before it was even called SharePoint. You've probably forgotten more about SharePoint than some people will know today, right? And he reminded me that I keep on writing, or I kept on thinking that everyone looks at it from the same perspective as I do, as someone who's been working with SharePoint for 20 years. And he was saying, look, sometimes there's people who are just starting, like they just started today, they started this week, and they need to start at the bottom. They need to learn some stuff. So I started writing blog as, I really took it to the name blog stands for web blog. So I started looking at it more as my own web log, my own journal, dear diary. Today I learned about this. And the way I did this is really, again, because I felt guilty about writing stuff. I didn't want people to say, oh, you should be writing about this. This is not the best way to do it. So I started writing it as, this is how I do this. And this is a note to myself. People can't take that away from me, right? This is the way I do it. And, the cool thing about it is that I started being able to, when I would be at a client and I'd be searching for something, it was amazing to see the first search result was actually my blog post, and I'd be like, oh, that looks familiar, So it's a great way to get started. If you feel guilty about blogging, you feel guilty about having something to say, just blog for yourself. And if others happen to benefit from it, that's even better. Now, if you don't feel like writing your own blogs, but you happen to have skills with the English prose, you can also just do editing, right? So there's lots of community docs, there's lots of Microsoft documentation out there that, I know you're going to be shocked, but there are actually spelling mistakes and, typos and other errors like that in the documentation. If you find content like that that's not accurate, that's not up to date, you can actually go update it. All this content is actually stored in GitHub. So if you know a little bit of Markdown, if you know a little bit of GitHub, you can actually go update the Microsoft documentation. And if you're interested in doing that, you just don't know where to start, we should talk to you because we got something called Sharing is Caring that can help you. But speaking of sharing is caring, why don't we talk about the next superpower?
Mentoring. So if speaking or training and those larger audiences seem too intimidating, but you really love helping solve problems for people, you may find that mentoring is your superpower. I was a solo resource at my company and needed to scale our environment quickly. I was using a lot of the free resources available in the community, attending SharePoint Saturdays and following blogs on these impactful topics, but I needed a bit more support. For me, my organization didn't have enough budget to bring on people, but I did have the opportunity to bring in a few community leaders like Sue Hanley and Mark Anderson to provide coaching on the strategic planning of our environment as we move from classic to modern. Whether mentorship is done in the community or through consulting, it can be incredibly impactful to work one-on-one with someone on your specific problems. And mentorship goes both ways too, as the mentor is often learning about new challenges to solve. If you love solving problems but feel intimidated speaking to that full room, this might be better aligned with your superpowers. Think about what experiences you have been through that you can share with the community so they can learn from your bumps and bruises. Mine was scaling SharePoint in a fast-growing organization.
So let's talk developing. So far, we've talked about superpowers. It had a lot to do with talking, right? Whether it's mentoring, speaking at events, training people. What if talking just isn't your thing? What if maybe writing isn't your thing, or making videos? But what if you can build cool stuff, right? And when I talk about developing, I'm not just talking about, those of you who have C#, JavaScript, those traditional programming language skills. This could be anything. It could be list formatting samples. It could be Power Platform, which you know that I'm passionate about, sharing a cool Power App you built or a flow. In fact, one of the first contributions I made from a development perspective was a flow that I built that lets you send an ICS calendar invite automatically through Flow. I took that sample that I built, that I worked hard on, I was for a client there, shared it out with the community so everyone that could use it, and harnessed it by developing superpowers there. Now, what goes hand in hand with development though? So we're developing something. What is inevitable? We will have bugs that we have to squash. So just like Hugo said when he talked about writing there, people make spelling mistakes. We're going to need good editors that can catch those things and fix them. So we need people in the community that have the bug fixing superpower that can squash any bugs that might be in some of the code or samples that we share there from a developer standpoint. So that's the only certainty in development, is that there will be bugs. In my example I shared with that ICS calendar invite, someone in the community shortly after I shared that noticed a bug in my solution there. I had a missing colon, I think, in my expression in the flow, and they graciously fixed that, harnessed their superpower, squashed the bug, and now we have a working solution for everyone. So those two really go hand in hand, and we need those bug fixers to help with the solutions that we develop.
Now, so far, we've talked about the curation or creation of content that we would like to share with others. But what about sharing creative content that others have made with people that we associate with? Now, this could be social circles. This could be within our organization. This could be just within our local geographic user groups or our virtual worldwide user groups. Socializing this information is a contribution. Don't be afraid to share the information that you've learned from someone else with others. This is a powerful effect. We all are social creatures as humans. We can see through the app icons on the screen, there are lots of ways that we're sharing information and consuming information each and every day. We have different social circles, different social audiences. And where we learned something, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of our associates are going to see the exact same thing from the same sources. So we can play a part in sharing what we've learned with others. If one person that you've shared it with finds value, then you make a difference. Now, this brings us to the next superpower, so important, encouraging. Cannot stress enough the power of encouragement. We are humans that thrive on knowing that we're making a difference, that we're helping others. We want to know that the efforts and the hard work that we're putting into the community is appreciated. Well, we can show appreciation by providing encouragement to those who are contributing. Tell them they're doing great. Tell them you enjoyed it. Give them an actual actionable result of something that they shared that you found value in and made a difference in your life. Do not underestimate the power of encouragement. Do not think it's not a contribution. Encouraging those that are working in the community is a powerful contribution. And a way that you can encourage is providing feedback.
Yeah, so giving feedback superpower here really goes hand in hand with encouragement. Feedback is one of the greatest gifts that we can both give and we can receive. It's like water for flowers. Without it, they won't bloom. People that are contributing, whether it's they're speaking, they're training, they're sharing their code samples, whatever it might be, they need that feedback, because how are they going to know if they're doing well, if that sample works correctly, if it's filling the need, if the training session that they just gave or the talk is good, or is there any way for an improvement? So feedback, as we know, it can be both positive or it could be, negative, but the important part here is that it's always constructive. So that's something we want to keep in mind when we're harnessing our feedback superpower. So if the feedback really keeps contributors going, it can sometimes be that last push that they need to be able to build up the courage to do something outside their comfort box. So maybe some of your feedback is, on that flow that I built for the ICS counter invite, well, it'd be cool if you could add this into that, and maybe integration with, Exchange or something. Maybe I haven't worked in that, but that feedback encouraged me to push myself out of my comfort zone and add in that integration there. It can help us get unstuck and unlock growth, and encourages change and innovation. So I remember an important piece of feedback that I got when I started doing my videos. Someone mentioned that, the videos are great, but, good feedback usually has like a compliment then a but, right? But it would be cool if you started off with the demo of what you're going to show and then break it down. So I took that feedback to heart, and I think it really improved my content and made me a better contributor. So we've covered all of the major superpowers that we can have, but wait, we have to face something that's stopping us, right? These are the opposing forces of evil, and they are out to get us, and they want to stop us from contributing. So what are these forces that we have to battle? We have space, time, mind, reality, soul, and power. Let's explore each of these opposing forces of evil, find out what they're about, and how we can counteract them.
So the first villain that we're facing who has control of our space stone is the Isolator, who removes local communities, makes everything feel out of reach, and often works with pandemics to make us feel entirely alone. But to fight this Isolator, we have a few different options that we can use our superpower to do, like creating our own user group in a region. When I moved to Florida during the pandemic, there was no user group here, so I teamed up with Jeff Collins to get one started. Whether it is by region or by topic, if you see a void, you can be the one that helps to fill it. You can also join other user groups that support virtual attendees. This has been one of my favorite things this year as attending events all over the globe. It has widened my perspectives on the challenges we're solving for in this community and the different ways to go about it. And different regions will likely have different perspectives on that as well. You can also find a collaborator in the community. When we started updating the SharePoint maturity model to the Microsoft 365 maturity model this year, we sent out a tweet for anyone interested. That became a partnership with Simon Doy and Simon Hudson over in the UK. And for the past year plus, we've been working on this together weekly. If Twitter feels a bit too big, consider reaching out to a like-minded session attendee, someone maybe you meet in the chat, or someone who joined the same training session as you to get that partnership going.
Time. It's what is bringing us all to an equal plane, isn't it? No matter the amount of life situations we have, our opportunities in life, time equalizes everything for us. We all have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The Time Lord is here to sneak up on us and take that time away. Time is always dwindling. So how do we combat this Time Lord? Well, we want to provide balance to our efforts and our contributions. Try breaking things into smaller tasks. We may have grand plans and grand ideas. If we're going to start a video service on YouTube, for example, or a video subscription, we may think we want 1 billion subscribers. Well, we're going to have to start with one. So break it into smaller chunks and smaller tasks. Set smaller goals for yourself and reward yourself along the way. Within time, we have the perfectionisto, the enemy of innovation, and can make any task feel like it needs to take forever because it should be perfect. Nothing is ever good enough. Once we've got to what we think is perfect, we're sick of it because we've been working with it for so long and it's not good enough, so we need to make it better. And we never, ever, ever complete it. What can we do to combat that? Ask for advice from others on the progress you've made to date. Level set yourself. Get a perspective that's not your own. It will refresh you and it'll provide you a new way to see that it is good. I'm overly critical of myself. I'm being too hard on myself or the work that I've done. This is good. I can actually publish it or release it. Now, what about getting things done? The procrastinator, deprioritize things, makes us want to take more naps. We can't get it done because of X, Y, or Z or ABC. How do we combat that? Well, collaborate with others. If you know it's easy to let yourself down or just tell yourself, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. No one's really holding me to any expectations. It's just me. I'm okay with letting myself off the hook. Collaborate with others because we're so much more willing to go out of our way and complete a task when we know we're going to let down a friend if we don't. but we're always willing to let down ourselves. But when we collaborate with others, we want to succeed. We want them to succeed. And so we're more willing to ensure that we don't put things off, we get it done. And then as mentioned, we can continue to reward ourselves, set little goals along the way. And when you meet those goals, reward yourself with something. It could be as simple as a cup of coffee, your favorite drink, your favorite meal, or some tech gadget that you know is going to actually help you do a better job in some of the contributive efforts you're doing.
So up next, we have the Mind Stone, and our first villain is the Brainwasher. This is kind of like pre-imposter syndrome, where you don't even want to start sharing your superpower. Your mind goes blank and you feel like you have nothing to say. I align with this a lot, as there were already some community heavy hitters talking about information architecture and user experience when I became more active in the community. But good news, we can definitely use our superpowers to fight it. More voices in the community amplify the same message. If we all align on a better practice, that is great. The more we share this, the easier it is for new community members who haven't attended every session and event for years to learn the same better practice. Herbert Krugman, a psychologist, states it takes 3 times for someone to hear something before taking action, as it needs to move through curiosity, recognition, and then finally decision. So you can help support hearing that message multiple times. Each voice also comes from a different perspective, and we will inherently share those and hear them in a different way. So since we all hear things differently, maybe someone needs to hear it in your voice to fully understand. You may have a different anecdote or example that really solidifies the mental model for someone. Now, we also have another villain, the Isolator, who makes you feel like I don't belong. This one resonates with me too, as I come from a very non-traditional background in communications, and I don't have a computer science degree. I don't code, so what is my place in the IT community? To fight it, maybe you just haven't found your community or superpower just yet. What is the contribution you enjoy? Embrace that feeling. My superpower is the intersection of technology and people. I get excited solving for user experience challenges, picking that perfect microcopy for a button, or leading user testing to measure an intuitive homepage. You can also compile positive feedback you've received for those times when you really need the motivation. I have a OneNote section for this and remind myself that those negative feelings are the outliers. I have a lot of evidence that there's a place for me here in this community. Lastly, have a trusted colleague or community friend you trust for honest feedback. Whether it's feedback on a presentation or guidance on applying to a conference, get that outside perspective when you're stuck on a negative feedback loop in your head. I also like to ask myself, would I talk to someone else in the way I'm talking to myself now? Often the answer is no. So how can I shift my mental focus into doing something more productive?
All right, so the next evil is the imposter syndrome. And it makes people feel like they don't deserve their success, right? It makes you expect that someone will call you out for being a fraud. I've just recently joined Microsoft, and I have to admit that even though I've been doing this stuff for a very long time, every single time that someone calls me out of the blue from Microsoft, I half expect them to call and say, hey, we just realized you don't know anything and you need to get out of here. So this is a real feeling, right? There's real people who have experienced this before, and we'll talk about some of these people. But imposter syndrome is, well, it's something we want to fight, but it's not necessarily completely bad. So let's talk about how do we kind of fight it, right? So the first thing is to know that the feeling is normal. It's more common than you think, because, well, if you think about it, you're constantly trying to learn new things. You're constantly trying to keep yourself just on the leading edge, right? And I think Scott Hanselman, I think, describes it as if you're going out for a swim in the ocean and you're constantly keeping yourself just out of your depth, right? So you have to keep on swimming to stay afloat. And that, if you do that in technology, if you're constantly trying to keep yourself afloat and trying to learn, then you have no choice but to have that sense of, well, I don't know anything, because the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. There's Nobel Prize winners like Albert Einstein that felt exactly the same way. He was like, I don't know what the big deal is. You know, I don't know anything. It's rarely discussed because every person feels like they're keeping a secret. But the one thing I would say here is don't be afraid of saying that you feel like an imposter. It's a good thing. So if you want to know, if you want one way to fight it is remind yourself of all the cool things you've done. Keep track of your contribution. Read it from time to time. Read your old letters of recommendation, or if you've been given an award, read the inscription, because it'll tell you exactly why you got this. You don't just look good on paper, right? There are actual accomplishments you've earned. I worked really hard to get my MVP, and once in a while when I feel down, I'm like, oh, I don't know anything. I'll actually look over to my right, and I have the MVP award there. And it's a reminder that, maybe I feel guilty, maybe I feel like an imposter, but the rest of the community feels that there's value in what I do. So another way that you can help make yourself feel better about being an imposter is teach or become a mentor. You'll be surprised how much you know. The fact of teaching someone kind of forces you to take inventory of how much you know. And being a mentor also helps people by using your own kind of weaknesses to be able to help explain to people, you know what, I was feeling exactly the same way. It's normal. Don't worry about it. And remember, it's okay to not know what you're doing. Consider yourself someone who's learning and gaining expertise in the public eye, right? Don't lie about stuff. As long as you're enthusiastic about learning, people will cut you some slack. And expect initial failure. And that doesn't mean you want to lower your standards, but it's, the best way to explain it is I once asked a photographer, oh my God, you take such great pictures. It's amazing. How my pictures are all bad. How do you take good pictures? And he said, well, yeah, the secret is easy. You take a lot of really bad pictures, and eventually you'll end up taking good pictures. Anne Lamott, she's an author, and she titles every new work that she does, My Shitty First Draft. Allow yourself a similar leeway to mess up when any new beginnings. And then, honestly, keep a little imposter syndrome in your pocket. There's a fine line between being an imposter or having an imposter syndrome and egomania, and authentic modesty will help you keep things real.
All right, y'all, it's time to talk about some trolls here. Now, I'm not talking about the cute, animated, bright pink hair trolls here. I'm talking about these trolls, come out from the woodwork. They're ready and willing to attack us and attack and crush our souls, right? We've already had to face so many things. We're dealing with imposter syndrome, procrastination, all these things. Now we got to deal with these trolls. And there's, like I said, they come in all shapes and sizes. So we have the grammar police, there to criticize every missing colon, semicolon, whatever it is in your grammar. We have the debater. Right or wrong, these debaters don't care. These trolls are here to pick a fight, and they pull no punches. We have the haters. They don't have any constructive feedback. They just serve one purpose, and that is to spread their hate all over you. There's the creep. These trolls are out there to objectify and make you feel uncomfortable. This is one of my least favorite trolls. We have the know-it-all. These seek to make you feel inferior and insert their wisdom. We have spammers. These trolls try to make you use your contributions to use it to their advantage so they can spam you and shamelessly self-promote. We have the moochers and the assumptive closers. These types of trolls take advantage of your time and keep asking for more until you have nothing else to give. So with all these trolls that we have to deal with, how are we supposed to fight them? And I've had to deal with a lot of these, unfortunately. And the more that you put yourself out there and contribute, the more we're going to have to face these trolls. It's just a fact. So, but what we can do to fight them, often the best thing that we can do is to ignore them. So depending on the type of troll and what we're doing here. So ignore them and focus on the 90% good. The trolls are going to be a very small portion of what you have to deal with. You're going to get so much more positive feedback out there and constructive feedback. So ignore the trolls when you can and focus on the good there. Also, though, maybe ask some leading questions. Maybe the know-it-all troll, right, or the debater, maybe they actually have something in there that is good knowledge for you. Maybe there is some constructive feedback in what they're asking. So ask them follow-up questions, and maybe you can even turn those trolls into allies. You never know. It's actually happened with me. Also, we're human, right? We all make mistakes. It's just a fact of life. So if one of these trolls, which they're going to be the first to point out when you do make a mistake, if they do point it out, the best thing that we can do here is just own it, accept it, learn from it, and move on. Also, with some of those trolls, like the creep, right, it's really important to draw professional boundaries where you need to, and make sure that if it's really bad that you escalate via code of conduct, because we shouldn't tolerate any of that. So that's how we defeat and attack these trolls.
And finally, the Power Stone. Well, we may find ourselves that we need power, but we may find it being drained from us. Power drainer. How are we going to combat the things that the power drainer takes? Well, we may find ourselves in situations of decreasing power. What could they result from? Well, we may find ourselves in an industry and or organization where we don't feel inspired or encouraged. We may not have others that are willing and interested in working with us. So we may feel alone. We may feel like we're just being sapped of power, or we may be being asked to focus on unnecessary things. This may seem like we're closing in and being isolated and removed from the community, which is, again, going to drain all the power from our passion. Well, how can we combat that power drain? We want to look to collaborate with others in the community. Remember, this is a global community. It's worldwide. There are no geographic boundaries. There are no company boundaries. Everyone is willing to collaborate. So find other superheroes with complementary features or superpowers. Hugo and I have talked about how he loves to write and I like to do videos. So we collaborate and we share the information with others using those two media formats. And it's the same information, and that's okay. So find others in the community that have complementary superpowers and that you would like to actually work with, and focus and harness your passions. Don't let anyone take it away from you. Thrive with it. Find ways to encourage it and bolster it and increase it. And you can do that, again, by collaborating with others.
Which brings us to our next topic, right? So just like Superman, he has kryptonite and it affects only him. You may have some weaknesses which affects you uniquely, right? For example, I can't stand, and I said it before, I can't stand seeing myself on video and hearing my voice. So the thought of having to edit a video with me horrifies me. I'd rather like do my income taxes or something. But remember that we're much stronger together, right? You don't have to have every single power to contribute, and you don't have to fight every single weakness by yourself. Just like all the superheroes out there, right? They all have their origin stories, but they all become stronger when they become part of a team. Your team is this community, and we can help each other when one of us is down, and we can celebrate each other's successes. When we do that, we all succeed together. For example, like we talked about, David and I, we do work together. We create PowerPoint together. I like to actually create the PowerPoint presentations. He actually likes to go. I can't send this. Like, in order to speak at conferences, you have to go submit your call for a speaker. And it's one of those things. It's just entering a form, and I find it so boring, right? So David actually likes to submit sessions. Weirdo. I actually like to create the PowerPoint presentation. So we work together. We come up with ideas. He goes and sells it, and I help put together the story and stuff like that. We talked about the various ways that we can use your superpower and contribute, but let's give you some tips on how you can find your place in the community and get started contributing. Oops, that's not supposed to be there. There you go.
So if you found that speaking is your superpower, you may want to begin at user groups. Tampa Bay, Granite State, and Citizen Developer user groups are all specifically interested in new speakers and accept virtual speakers. So no matter where you are in the world, we would love to have you. Even if you just have an idea and need some guidance on forming that abstract, don't hesitate to reach out. We're on the other side of these forums and really happy to help you. You might also look for user groups with a common focus like the Power Platform user groups. Whether you want to speak right away or join to find attendees with those common interests to collaborate, focusing on your area of expertise can help the community feel smaller and more tangible. If you're new to speaking, you might also consider co-presenting. As Hugo mentioned, as contributors, we are often stronger when using our superpowers together. Hugo was interested in speaking at a user group about SharePoint news, and he's passionate about effective communication that results in a change in behavior. I'm focused on user experience, which explores how to best write for the web. He asked me to join him for this session, and our two perspectives together made for a stronger presentation. If you're a new speaker, having someone up there with you can also be incredibly helpful. You can take breaks from being the lead communicator, as you saw we are all doing today as we switch between slides, and have someone to help you lead into your points if you get nervous and stall, or maybe even forget what your point was on that slide. You also have someone to help hold you accountable, as we keep mentioning, to keep working on that talk together so you can battle that time stone. As you refine your talks and work through your speaking, you may want to apply to a different event like a SharePoint Saturday or a Collab Days event. Many events are seeking new speakers, and it's a wonderful opportunity to practice speaking to a larger audience. So it's really common to go from these user group presentations to one of those SharePoint Saturdays. Most of these events are also now virtual, opening up your opportunities to speak in different regions. I know that Collab Days New England just opened up a new call for speakers and is specifically looking for new people. So you can always check out spsevents.org to see who is looking for speakers. Now, another thing that you might want to do if your superpower is writing or editing is you can contribute to docs.microsoft.com to help edit that Microsoft's existing documentation. Maybe a new feature is released and they haven't quite updated the instructions, or maybe you found that dreaded lowercase p in SharePoint. Another opportunity is writing new content for Microsoft Community content, which is an open source initiative for community-driven content. The goal is to build this open source set of content to help people like information architects, business analysts, and citizen developers, or even site owners who want to use the Microsoft 365 platform better. Now, this repository is very different because these articles are more about the why of your solutions in Microsoft 365 opposed to the how, which is what we see on docs.microsoft.com. It is documentation to support making better business decisions. So as someone who does not identify as a developer or provide samples, this has been my favorite place to contribute my superpower. Even better, if you have challenges with managing the time stone, this is something that works on your own schedule.
Something else that you can do in your own schedule is, again, we've talked about writing your own blog, but I'm really focusing on your own blog, right? So this is about you. This is your personal journey. Don't let anybody take that away from you. I know, we talked about trolls. I have someone that I know that I respect and admire, and every time I write a blog post, he'll message me and he'll say, yeah, that's a great blog. It's all wrong, but it's a great blog, right? And then he'll go on to explain to me how I got it wrong. And every time I thank them for their opinion, and I'll say, you know what, that's a great perspective, and you're absolutely right. Now, if you remember at the start of my intro in my blog, I say this is the simplest way that I have found, right? Your way is way better, but it's also not the simplest. So just don't let anybody take that away. It's your voice, it's your opinion. Just don't write and say this is the only way and this is the best way. Just say this is how I do it, and this is the simplest way I have found. So you're actually not being kind of what's the word here, absolute in your opinion, and you're giving others the opportunity to have their voice. That's me too. Hey. So another way that you can contribute in your own time is developing and doing bug fixes. So if if you have lots of creative energy and you want to develop solutions, you don't really want to talk to people, you just want to create cool solutions and share them, you can absolutely do that. If you go to aka.ms/M365PMP, you'll see a place where we list all the open source repositories in the Microsoft community, Microsoft 365 community, where you can contribute. And we absolutely welcome all sorts of things. You can take an existing solution like the CLI for Microsoft 365, and you can add features to it. Or you can actually take something like the SharePoint web part samples or the Power Platform samples and add your own sample to share with the rest of the community. That's definitely one way that you can do that in your own time. Another way, again, if you're not feeling so inspired, you can actually always go look for ways that you can contribute in small increments. And one of the ways you can do that is in all those repositories, there's an issue list, and all the issue lists will usually have something called Help Wanted or Good First Issue. Good first issue, we always try to tag them as a way to say, you know what, if you're just getting started and this is a small contained thing that someone can fix, that's a good first issue. And if you're just getting started, go look for those. You can just click on that little purple good first issue. It'll filter all the issues for you, and then you pick the one you want. The ones that say help wanted are usually a little bit more advanced and they need a bit more attention. But again, if you want to flex your muscle, you can absolutely do that. So this is a great way to do that.
Once upon a time, there was a lonely little boy named David. He liked to contribute to the community, but he felt like he wasn't quite doing enough. It didn't measure up. He didn't have the experience he needed to really be effective in providing really cool solutions that everyone would benefit by. Well, the solution to that is teamwork. Don't be afraid of having limited experience in a specific area or think that that is going to prevent you from making a contribution. Perhaps you have an idea around how you would like to deliver some specific feature or solution or documentation or whatever the case may be. Ask others to collaborate with you. We've had a consistent message across and working with others and teaming up with others. This is just another way to do that, whether it's code or documentation. If you've got specific experience in one area and you don't have it in another, or maybe you want to learn and add it to your arsenal or tool belt, if you will, ask others who do have it to team up with you. Work on it together, and then you can distribute it to the community as a shared effort. It sets a good message. It sets a good example. Before you know it, you're going to find those that are going to be lifelong friends. So combine superpowers, lead to the best results. Ask them to join forces, and don't hesitate to ask. Don't be shy. Everyone in the community wants to collaborate if you have that desire. Now, so far, we've talked about how and what you can do, but there are hurdles that may prevent you from doing those things. Well, the Sharing is Caring initiative is a patterns and practices Microsoft 365 community initiative. This initiative is simple, actually. We provide sessions that will walk you through in a hands-on method, in a safe space, an inclusive opportunity. We don't even record the sessions. Many ask, hey, could I get the recording? Well, nope, we're creating recordings that are a little bit more, tutorial based, but these sessions are meant to be safe space opportunities for those that want to ask questions. I know that when I first got started, I wanted to ask questions, but I was intimidated thinking, well, shouldn't I already know this? If I ask this question, are they going to think, what is this guy even doing here? Why is he asking this question? Everybody knows the answer to that. Get out, right? No, not at all. But I was intimidated and afraid to ask the question. So these are opportunities that are going to walk you through hands-on things like contributing to GitHub. We talked about editing documentation. How do you do that? Do you have to be a Microsoft employee? Not at all. But how do you accomplish the editing of production documentation that lives at docs.microsoft.com? If you want to start creating SharePoint framework solutions, or you want to see how you can be a presenter at a variety of community calls and learn tips and tricks, we've covered a vast spectrum of topics with even more coming soon. Again, completely free, completely open to anyone that would like to participate. I put the link in the chat. Sharing is caring. We invite you to sign up for a session soon.
Awesome. All right. So far we've talked about ways that you contribute and how you can collaborate with others. But what's in it for me, right? What are the boons? What are the benefits? David?
Yeah, well, I'm the first to admit that I like to have friends. I like to collaborate. I like to work with other people. You'll notice I do a lot of co-presenting. I do a lot of collaborating with others for solutions. I find it inspiring and I find it encouraging. And because I was pushing myself, expanding my comfort zone, as another community member, Louisa Fries, says, expanding that comfort zone, not going outside of it. Sometimes going outside of it sounds like we're doing something we shouldn't do, but we're expanding that comfort zone to work with others. We're going to find that we actually have new friends. We're going to find that these friends actually start to transcend just whatever technical experience or attempt or goal we're trying to meet. And so you're going to have new friends that are going to be from all over the world. And they're going to be lifelong friends. You're going to find that they're going to become part of your life in a way that goes well beyond just simply submitting a contribution. And this can't be underscored. The value in this is incredible. So Take advantage of it. It's something that is unlike any other community. Our community is special and includes a lot of amazing people that no doubt will become your friends.
As you push yourself past your comfort zones and potentially collaborate with others along the way, you will inevitably learn new things. So, as David mentioned, he likes to do a lot of collaboration, and I've been learning a lot from him over the past couple of months working together and have gone into the world of some list and view formatting. Microsoft 365 is continually changing, and being involved in the community helps you keep your finger on the pulse. No one can know everything. So, by expanding your network through these community contributions, you will now have a list of people who are ready and willing to help you.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille, right? We all like to be recognized and featured for the work we do. We put in a lot of effort. We do a lot of hard work, and certainly we want to be recognized for that. Now, it doesn't mean that we want to be egotistical. It doesn't mean that we want to be the center of attention, but we do want recognition for the work we do. And what are the benefits of that? Well, you know, sometimes we look to expand and get more involved, maybe become an MVP, maybe get that job of our dreams. Recognition can help with that. And so getting that recognition is something that's important, and we provide that in the community. And there's also a lot of ways that are going to be coming soon within the Patterns and Practices community that provides a new level of recognition to those that are contributing back into that Microsoft 365 community. So you're going to receive that. You get it via GitHub when you provide a pull request, as it's called. That means you're going to be editing documentation or submitting samples. You get it when you present on events like this. You see people socializing and thanking you. It's important and it's valuable. So don't be afraid to accept it. Don't let it feed into your imposter syndrome. Know that you've done a good thing and appreciate it and say thank you.
Speaking of thank you, I'd like to thank you for listening to us. Today, we've discussed how everyone has their own superpower, right? How everyone can bring value to the community in their own unique ways. We talked about the villains that prevent you from contributing and how to fight them. Fighting the villains alone can sometimes be hard, and sometimes there are battles that only you can fight. But don't forget that there is a community out there of people that want to see you succeed, and that together we are so much more stronger than alone. So go out there and find out your superpower. Start contributing. Find your own unique and beautiful origin story and share it with us. So go out there and use the hashtag M365 origin story to share your origin stories. Again, if you're already a contributor and you've been successful, then let other people know how you got started, because that helps. We can't wait to see what you're capable of. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.